Let's talk about the most effective weight loss drugs ever created, and why a yellow plant compound isn't quite in the same league. Let's set the stage. Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Tirzepatide, Semaglutide. These names sound like rejected Marvel characters, but they're actually the biggest game changers in obesity treatment, maybe ever. They've been dominating headlines and social media for a reason. Meanwhile, Berberine has entered the chat with a vape pen and a podcast mic, claiming to be nature's Ozempic, armed with a grainy infographic and the confidence of a man with no medical degree. So, is it? I'm Jake, and this is Bottom Line. I've spent over a decade in the supplement industry for my career. Now, I break it all down so you know what's worth it and what's not. Today, we're talking about Ozempic and Tirzepatide. Here's the science in plain English. Ozempic and Wegovy are actually the same drug, semaglutide. Wegovy is the one FDA approved for weight loss. Ozempic is technically for type 2 diabetes, but let's be honest, nobody's using it for that anymore. It mimics a hormone called GLP-1, which does 3 super cool things. Makes you feel full sooner, slows down your stomach emptying, and increases insulin secretion when your blood sugar is high. It's about better insulin timing and sensitivity instead of just blasting your pancreas, which is a polite way of saying you don't feel like a filthy raccoon in a Taco Bell dumpster at midnight anymore. Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and Zepbound goes even further. It hits both the GLP-1 and GIP receptors. So it's like semaglutide, but with the emotional range of a Pixar protagonist. These were both originally developed for type 2 diabetes, but clinical trials showed dramatic weight loss, like 15 to 22% of body weight in some studies. That's not, oh wow, I lost a little water weight. That's your grandma asks if you're sick territory, which resulted in FDA approval for weight loss. Because if you didn't know, we have an obesity problem here in the United States. Okay, so these drugs work, but why? Like, why are people suddenly ghosting their Postmates driver? Let's talk about something called food drive. Shout out to Dr. Mike Israetel for breaking this down so beautifully, like a protein shake in a blender bottle. Fantastic channel, by the way, if you aren't familiar. He's a literal doctor of exercise science, bodybuilder, and overall badass. Go give him a follow if you aren't already. Renaissance periodization. But food drive. So your food drive is basically your internal hunger thermostat. But in 2025 America, it's being screamed at by giant portions, looking at you, Cheesecake Factory, high fructose nostalgia snacks, and overall just a ton of sugar in almost everything we eat. I am not here to demonize high fructose corn syrup. Unfortunately, the culprit isn't that simple. And TikTok's latest trend, eating exclusively like an unsupervised child of divorce. These meds don't just reduce hunger, they regulate the entire system telling you to eat all the time for no reason, even though you're full and sad and watching reruns of The Office. So instead of relying on willpower, which is great until 2 a.m. and there's leftover pizza, these drugs actually lower the desire to eat. The reality is, willpower is not a reliable long-term tool to address obesity. If you want to have a willpower argument, go have it somewhere else with a bunch of dudes with 6-packs in a brightly lit room doing a verbal circle jerk, aka a men's podcast. It's not cheating. It's playing the game with a real controller instead of a busted Mad Catz controller. Now let's get into something you may have seen in the supplement market as these drugs have taken off. Natural Ozempic, aka Berberine. Berberine is a compound found in plants like barberry, which sounds like the official condiment of emotionally distant fathers in period dramas. Probably best enjoyed with tea, repressed emotions, and a crumbling British estate. It's been used for blood sugar support, insulin sensitivity, and possibly cholesterol. It might even help a little if you're pre-diabetic. And yes, there are some small studies that showed minor weight loss, like a few pounds, over months, for some people. But comparing it to Ozempic is like comparing a juice cleanse to chemotherapy. Like, sure, drink your celery sludge, but one of these is treating a medical condition, and the other is treating bad vibes, guilt, and the fact that you downloaded MyFitnessPal again. The effects are nothing close to GLP-1 drugs. Full stop. Berberine's a decent supplement, But if it actually worked like Ozempic, the FDA would yank it off the shelves faster than a mom blog can blame gluten for emotional instability. It works in a completely different way. It's more like metformin light than semaglutide. So for some people, it can be a great option for a natural hack for blood sugar, and if GLP-1 drugs aren't an option for you for whatever reason. They're not cheap. But let's talk about the real issue. Supplements are not drugs, and that's not an insult. It's a fact. One gets tested in clinical trials, the other gets reviewed by Steve on Amazon. Drugs are tested, regulated, and approved to treat real conditions. Supplements are legally not allowed to treat, cure, or prevent disease. Ever. And honestly, they shouldn't. Berberine doesn't need to be the natural Ozempic. It can just be Berberine. A background character. A nice supporting actor. Not the star of the show. A mildly helpful compound for blood sugar support, not a miracle in a bottle. Now let's get real for a second on something I'm personally very passionate about. Call it what you want. Excess weight, being overweight, a winter bulk that's lasted 6 years. For simplicity's sake, I'll just say obesity. I know those things are different. We treat obesity like it's a character flaw, a moral failing, but it's not. It's a complex condition with roots in genetics, trauma, poverty, upbringing, addiction, mental health, food access, and the fact that 7-Eleven now sells sushi, which should be illegal under maritime law. These medications don't turn obese people into supermodels. They help people take control of their health, of their energy, of their lives. These drugs offer hope for people who've struggled long term, not an easy way out or a cheat code. If you've struggled with weight for your whole life and these drugs help you, that's not failure. That's a f***ing win. And trigger warning, I'm going to talk about this personally right now for a minute. So if you need to skip this part, I'll put a timestamp on where to skip ahead to if you just don't want to go there. I'll get very personal. I have struggled with my weight my entire life. There's not a time in my life that I can remember, including my childhood, where I've not been self-conscious about my weight. That fucks you up inside, even after you lose the weight, to the point where you can be getting compliments from people saying how good you look, and you don't believe them, or the mirror, because I can always find a flaw, an area that isn't good enough. Our brains are really good at holding on to things that have a lot of emotion or trauma surrounding them. I got called fat all the time growing up, by family members, friends making a joke, bullies in school, and even total strangers. I internalized that shit to no end. I viewed it as a moral failing. I wasn't good enough. I couldn't understand why I couldn't look like my friends do. Why I was always embarrassed to take my shirt off around other people. I got really good at standing in the corner, trying to blend in and be invisible. So I didn't risk being seen by someone who could call me fat and cut me deep. I would literally starve myself as a teenager, tracking every calorie to the point of obsession because I was so disgusted with myself and what a worthless piece of shit I was. I'll find a photo and put it up here so you can see how drastically different I looked then. And I feel really sad for me now, looking back on that. And here's the fucked up thing. Even after I lost the weight, none of that thinking magically went away for me. I still deal with it to this day, even though I'm able to handle it in a much healthier way than I did in the past. And I do my best to not let a number on a scale determine my self-worth. But learning more about what actually drives obesity, that it's not as simple as just having more willpower, has made me have more compassion for both myself and others who struggle with excess weight. And I just want to say now, if there's anyone watching this who has internalized their weight into their identity and self-worth, specifically in a negative way, you are more than that. You matter. You are important. And you have unique value that you bring into this world that no one else can. And if those just sound like nice words that you can't internalize right now because of how f***ed your thinking is at the moment, at least know from someone who has been there that there is hope. I see you. So yeah, maybe let's stop acting like someone's body size is a motivational issue solved by drinking lemon water and yelling, "Be hard!" into the mirror like David Goggins. Bottom line, Let's sum it up. Ozempic and tirzepatide are the most effective weight loss tools we've ever seen. They're like the LeBron James and Steph Curry of appetite suppression. Everyone else is still in JV. And they're backed by actual science, not TikTok trends. Berberine is a great supplement, but it's not natural Ozempic. That's like calling almond milk dairy. We all know it's lying, but we go along with it anyway. So take Berberine if it helps you, but don't expect it to fight your food drive with the same firepower as semaglutide does. And if you're considering one of these medications, talk to a real doctor or medical provider, not a guy on Instagram selling peptide syringes out of his gym bag, especially if he starts his videos with, "What Big Pharma doesn't want you to know." Hit the button if you learned something today. Subscribe and hit the bell icon if you're tired of wellness influencers lying to you. And tell me in the comments, would you take one of these meds if it was more affordable? Either way, just don't buy weight loss capsules in an unlabeled Ziploc bag from some dude named Chase. Thanks for checking out Bottom Line. See you next time.